Hey, what's going on, everybody? Happy Tuesday. Wow, I always forget my Sundays and Tuesdays, but hey, what's going on? Keys, I would still invest in with special guest appearance, Mr. Ryan from Automatic Comics. If you guys don't know who Ryan is, please make sure you guys go check him out. It is Automatic Comics once again. He is really good with numbers. He's really good with comics. His videos are outstanding. You usually can find him with videos like, I just spent $10,000, look what I got. I just spent $6,000, look what I got. But he is a good guy. He's got a lot of information, a lot of numbers, and a lot of good books, as you will see. Last time we did a video, everybody was amazed at the books behind him. I think they're the same books, but nevertheless, he's a good guy. So let's get the show started. Let's get the party going. Hope the popcorn is warm and the Coronas are rolling. First up, Mr. FaceTime, what's up, man?
Wow, man, speaking of background displays, that's a hell of a comic book background display you got going on there today. What happened? You get booted out of the man cave?
So listen, my mother actually just sold her house. She's got 3 to 4 weeks before she goes into her new house. So as the firstborn and as her favorite child, I said, Mom, why don't you stay with me? The guest room is beside my office. So I said, you know what? I'll start doing my shows in the downstairs. So that's kind of where I'm at. So yeah, I got all the stuff,
Okay.
the Uruguay stuff. But yeah, I didn't get kicked out of my own office. No.
Small sacrifices for Mom. I guess we can go ahead and excuse that.
Yeah. Before we continue, Kid Collector, man, thank you so much, dude. That's probably the fastest super chat maybe in YouTube history. I don't know. But he's saying this is for the advice and help newbie gives. Man, appreciate it. I don't know what to say, man. I'm terrible at getting gifts, but thank you, man. Appreciate that. So we got a good show for you. There's going to be a lot of information, a lot of numbers, obviously, because these are keys. We're going to be talking about books that we would still buy, even though they have a crazy price tag to them. And sometimes these books, like some books you don't touch because they've kind of peaked. But these books that we're going to talk about, I don't think they've peaked. And it's going to be interesting to see what our guest says. Face, I'm interested to see what you say about some of these. So, yeah, let's get it going. Let's bring them in. Guys, please help me welcome. And, if you're near a computer and you got some space, maybe stand up and start clapping. But it is Automatic Comics, Mr. Ryan. What's going on, man?
Hey, yeah, thanks for having me back on. Yeah, I was lazy and I did not change out my display behind me. But I was on vacation last week, so that's my excuse to it. But yeah, no, thanks for bringing me back. It's always fun talking comics with you guys.
Yeah, man, for sure. And I thought we had a good time last time, so I figured, you know what? Why don't we get somebody else in? I think if I remember correctly, you didn't disagree with me last time, so I thought, you know what? Let's bring in a guest. I'm just kidding.
Yeah, but now if I'm speaking first, who knows? You never know where I'm going to go with this. So
right. The rules.
So man, I'm really excited because we've met because of Vancouver Comic Junkie, but we are number guys. We are we're kind of just crazy for the numbers and stuff. So I just thought, you know what, this is a perfect segment to have Ryan back on. And I enjoy talking comics with you, man. So it should be a really fun show.
Yeah. No, I definitely went and I did look up a few things, leading into here, just so I had something to speak to. But yeah, no, I'm looking forward to this.
All right. Well, let's get the show started then, guys. First up, let me just get my computer because I'm at a different desk and it's like one of those like leveled, so like the mouse is on like a higher. Yeah, it's all very confusing. Some people are probably like, newbie, are you drinking again? No. First up, we got to talk about a few friends. So we've got Big B Comics, 3 stores, guys. You know how it is. Niagara, Barrie, Hamilton. I rep the one in Niagara and the one in Hamilton. A lot of you guys have been starting to buy from them and realizing that they got good stuff and good shipping. Continue it. Check them out on eBay, Instagram, all that fun stuff. Next up, we got my presser, Mr. Bleecker Street Comics. I'm excited for him because he's got his flea market finally opening in 1 week, 1 week's time. $10 a press, $5 a clean. Guys, check out bleekerstreetcomics.com. Use code word newbiecomics, #10, get 10% off. Or 1, newbiecomics, #1, get 10% off. Finally, next up, we have Shape State Creative. Ask for Derek. Tell him Newbie sent you. Logo, graphic design, all that stuff. He's got you covered. Make sure you guys go check him out. And finally, we've got Mutant Beaver Comics with code word newbie10. Get 10% off. They ship everywhere. So if you're from the States and you think, I don't know, they got some good stuff, but they don't ship. No, they do. They'll take care of you. So make sure you guys use code word newbie10. All right. With that said, guys, let's start the show.
All right, let's get into it.
I'm excited. And again, this is going to be keys that we still would invest in, right? So even though they have some crazy, some crazy price tags to them, we kind of still believe that there could be a ceiling, or that there is no ceiling, that it could be a little bit more pricey. You could probably make a few bucks on. So, nobody look at this list and be like, oh my God, this book's already crazy. We know. That's the point. So first up, guys, here we go. We've got Astonishing X-Men #6, first appearance of Abigail Brand. Not the most fitting cover, not the sexiest cover, but it's a book that's very sought after.
I don't know. It's a pretty sexy cover, you got mostly naked Colossus on there.
Colossus in a Speedo. I mean, yeah. All right.
Colossus is always in a Speedo.
Well, Ryan, you're up, man.
Yeah. So for me, this book, we haven't even really. We don't know for sure that we're getting this character. There's rumors, unless I'm missing something. There's rumors that there's, the Mother of Dragons is going to end up playing that character. But it's really actually, I was looking at this book on the census, and for a modern book, it's pretty low. It's got a low census count. So I don't know if there are a bunch of them just sitting raw waiting to come in, which is possible, but it has gotten a lot more expensive lately. So I would think people would have been submitting them and those numbers would be going up because, I think, like you've got there 9/8 going for, mid to high 6s Canadian. And so that's not if you've got that book sitting around and you have a bunch of them, why wouldn't you send that in to get graded if you've got a high grade? Even 9/6s are selling for, a couple $100. So I think this one, it's gone up. I checked it. It's gone up about 150, 160% in the last year. But given what a lot of other books have done, big keys, that still probably has a little bit of room. I could see something maybe getting up to around 200 to 250%. That's where I've been seeing these numbers get to. So I could see that book going up at least another couple $100, even if we don't see the character right away. Especially since we've been introduced to Sword. We know Sword is around and they're likely to play a bigger role moving forward. So I could see still picking up this book. It's actually on, I have a watch for it on eBay. So I am always looking for it especially for auctions. I'm always looking for auctions because fixed price, they're pretty expensive right now.
Yeah.
But on auctions, you can still snag this book for a pretty good price.
So Abigail Brand, if you're not familiar with the character, and I feel like it's got that Guardians of the Galaxy vibe to it, right? Like I think that maybe later on it will be something that we look back on and be like, wow, I can't believe I didn't get this book at the current prices, right? Most of us already do with a lot of books. Abigail Brand, if you're not familiar, she is kind of, best way to describe it, Nick Fury. And a lot of people are saying that Emily Clark is going to be playing her. They're, in, I believe it's Secret Invasion. So this book kind of spiked a little bit, but as FaceTime would tell you, when I'm assuming it's his turn to talk, he will tell you, hey, I kind of told you guys to go pick this book up last year when it was like $20. And that's true. This book, again, I don't think it's the greatest cover, and I think that that's one of the things that it's got going down for it. I have this book in the 9.6. I just purchased the 9.8 not too long ago from our boy, Mr. Vancouver Comic Junkie. But like you said, Ryan, I think that this book has a lot of room, and the way we've seen a lot of these books, when these characters come into play, they kind of just reach that 1500, 1800 plateau, right? Like we look at White Vision, you know, the resurgence of Deadpool when the rumors came out that there was going to be a third movie. That's kind of the numbers where they go, right? They go to that 1800. More recently, we've seen the 9.8s to certain characters get into that 2500. I'm not saying that this could get to 2500, but I mean, if Emily Clark ends up playing her, it's popular and people can say, you know what, she did a really good job, blah, 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 blah. This could be one of those books that has a high ceiling, and at $675 now, it would be easy for me to say that is like $1,000 book later down the road at worst case.
If it hit those 15 to 1800 numbers, though, I'd sell it.
Yeah,
because White Vision, I just saw a newsstand get listed for like $950, and that's a big drop from where that was at. And so, and that could be the time to pick that book up. I mean, I'm not sure with that book, but we might see him again, and so it's likely you could get a spike again with that book. But yeah. I mean, those types of numbers for modern-ish books, I'd be selling them.
Well, I mean, I guess I'm kind of biased on this book, because for me personally, I would not be buying it anymore at these prices. But in fairness, that's because I don't need to buy it. I have a few copies. Been buying it up for a while now. You know, like Newbie said, I was kind of on this book last year when it was, you know, $10 to $20.
Yeah.
That being said, I got to agree with both of you guys. I still think there is more upside to this, and I still think there is more potential. Like I said, you know, for me personally, I'm good on it. But if I didn't have it, yeah, I would probably go ahead and still consider picking it up because, you know, like both you guys mentioned, the potential of Amelia Clark playing Abigail Brand is pretty big in itself. But one of the other cool things about this character in particular is that right now she's playing a lot bigger role in the comics too, with stuff that's happening and everything. The mutants are really starting to have a large cosmic presence, and Abigail Brand is sort of like spearheading that whole endeavor in Sword, which is going to lead into, you know, one of the summer's big events, the Last Annihilation, that apparently they're going to play a big role in. So, you know, they're definitely using this character right now. So I feel like it's one that they're trying to draw attention to, not just, you know, maybe even in like the mainstream stuff, but also in comics too. And that kind of does play into, you know, maybe Amelia Clark playing Abigail Brand. We'll see. Yeah, like Universe X says there are still other potential characters that she may be playing. So we just have to wait and see. I do think Abigail Brand would be a great fit for her, you know. So yeah, I think there's still upside there for sure.
Yeah.
I saw a comment about, you know, should you sell your book raw or get it graded? And with a modern like this, like if it's high grade, you almost have to sell it graded if you want to at least maximize it. If it's like 9.4, 9.6, you can't sell it raw, in my opinion, if you want to really maximize that money.
I agree.
Yeah.
The other problem with this, not the other problem, sorry, that's a bad way to say it, but I feel like this book maybe goes down the same path as your Gambit. I'm not trying to put this character up there with Gambit or Hulk, but number 3, right? Like issue number 3, we get like the first appearance, then the first full appearance. I don't think that number 3 says cameo on the CGC description, right? But I think that's a way better cover, to be honest, but that's just my opinion. But I'll leave it at that. All right, guys. Next book on the list, She-Hulk number 1.
Yeah, so for She-Hulk number 1, I don't know. I don't know if I'd still be buying this one right now because it's up a lot. Like a lot, and there are a ton of them out there too. There are over 8,000 graded copies, and I see raw ones sell all the time. So there are a lot of high grade raws that are still out there that haven't been submitted. Now, the trend that I've been seeing recently with kind of like books spiking is that they're starting to spike a lot earlier. When it started with, I don't remember if we talked about this in the last one or not, but when it started with WandaVision, none of those books moved until the show had already started.
Yeah.
But with Loki, those like Journey into Mystery 85 spiked a month before that show came out.
Yeah.
And everybody knows about She-Hulk. Everybody knows that show's coming. And so I think at least a lot of the initial move in that book has come. And so I don't think I'd be picking up this book right now. Now, it's always like, if you get it for a good deal, go ahead and buy it, but I wouldn't be paying like full retail prices expecting big moves in this book right now.
Yeah. I think, like Chef just said in the comments, this book had no love for so long. I remember seeing this book, at what is it? My comic shop. They had about like 5 of these every week for the past like 2 years on their auctions. And, they were always going for good prices, 9.6s, 9.8s. They had a few. And I was always saying like, no. Then out of nowhere, it's just gone up. And you look at some of those prices. And again, like I said to you, Ryan, my numbers are like three weeks 3 weeks ago. So like these even could have been updated from this, but a 9.8 going for almost $1,700. The only reason I put this on the list of like keys that I would buy is simply because we haven't had anything. We haven't got anything. So I feel like if you were to buy it at this price point, there could be some room. Now, you're not going to get like, I don't think you're going to get 200%, 300%, but there could be a little bit of money to be made because let's face it, when a character comes, a trailer, whatever, we know that this community just goes crazy and just starts buying and goes, the FOMO is real. So I would expect that the FOMO exists with this book as well, right?
Yeah, this one's up 200% in the last year. It's gone up significantly, which most of the top ends I see with a lot of the books is somewhere around 200 to 300%. And so, yeah, there could be a little more there, but I would definitely watch it and see if things pull back a little bit over the summer. That normally is what happens. People are going outside and doing other stuff, and see if you can maybe get it for a little cheaper before that, anything really comes out with that show.
Yeah.
So, I love the comment about She-Hulk not getting any love for years because that's very true. But she's definitely getting some love now on those prices. I think I agree with both of you guys actually. Like, I think Newbie's right in that there's definitely some future potential there. We all know the rules when it comes to these things. The trailer hasn't hit yet, the actual series hasn't hit yet, so that's obviously the best time to sell because there is a large portion of the comic book community out there still that doesn't watch YouTube videos, read the news articles. They just sort of go into a comic book shop and buy some comics off the shelf and sort of hope for the best. They're still not necessarily at the level that maybe our viewers are and everything like that with the hobby. So, and I think that does contribute somewhat to like people you see in these last minute spikes. People, they see She-Hulk finally get the trailer and then they run to the their LCS or eBay or whatever and start trying to grab these because they really haven't been paying as much attention. So I think there is still some potential to go up there, but like Ryan said, this still might not be the time to buy it either because we're going to kind of see a little bit of a lull until we do get that, that trailer. So you might start to see some of these prices drop a little bit and be able to pick it up a little bit cheaper if that's your intent too, if you wait another month or so.
Yeah, that's what I've been really watching with a lot of books right now. I've been since June started, I've seen things kind of like for the books that made big moves already, like you still get new highs with books, but with the books that made big moves already like this, I am seeing some kind of like drift down. And so it's just something that's worth watching because you catch the right auction, you can
Yeah.
You can get things for a pretty good price.
Yeah, you just got to be careful. I just like Bloop just said, right? This is kind of where my mind was going with this was even when we get set photos, there's a high chance of that FOMO spike, and I kind of always remind people of the Shang-Chi or Shang-Chi, whichever you want to go. I always say both just in case I don't want to offend anybody, but like, me and Hyper were always talking about an 8.0, sitting on eBay forever. And we were always talking about it. Me and Hyper were always saying, oh, maybe we should pull the trigger. Maybe we should pull the trigger. And I always told him, man, 500, 600, that's way too much for that book. I don't believe it. Go look at what 8.0 does now. And I know we have 2 trailers already, but when that movie comes out, I mean, that's going to be a big, big book. Like So
I have
this is going to get.
I have a pile of those.
Yeah,
that was the book I was buying the most of for the last like 6 months. But yeah, that last trailer was awesome. That was really good.
And you know what? Like I
oh yeah,
totally different show. But like we talked about this on Sunday, and I even said, I'm like, listen, when the first trailer came out, I wasn't really like on board with it. Like I was on board with it, but like I wasn't like, oh man, I'm like so pumped when I saw
I think I watched that first trailer like 8 times. I still liked it. But the second one gave you more action, kind of more the special effects you are used to with Marvel and all that. So
the 10 rings and all that. Yeah. All right. Before we get on to the next show, I just want to let people know that if you're watching the NBA playoffs right now, I'm pretty sure Giannis just tore his ACL or something. But just throwing that out there if there's any Buck fans out there. All right. Next book on
we just lost half the audience.
Next book on the list. They're like, wait a minute, sports? Yeah, I'm out here. We've got Vengeance #1. First appearance of America Chavez.
I mean, this is another one. I can't recommend picking up this book right now. This book is up a lot. Like, this one is up more than I think any book I looked at, and it's up 400% in the last year. And I mean, granted, it was like a nothing book a year ago.
Oh yeah.
But still, a 9.8. So I was looking at 9.8 recent prices in US 1,500. So I mean, just way up. And it's a cool character. I think that her power set is really cool because I want to make sure I got it right. She has the portals, right?
I believe so.
Yeah, she does and like her power set could be like really cool for special effects, everything like that. But man, that book is so high up. I've been seeing a few copies pop up recently, and I keep watching them. I wouldn't mind picking one up, but at over $1,000 for a 9.8, I'm not really wanting to do that at the moment. It is a cool cover. Unfortunately, she's not on it, but it is a cool cover.
Okay, here's the thing with the cover. I love Magneto, and I love the Magneto-ness, but I've always thought that this was a weak cover.
Oh man.
Yeah, and you know what? If the NBA playoff comment didn't let you leave, and that one does, hey, I'm okay with it. But like, I love the Magneto part. I just didn't, I don't know. I feel like there's a lot of wasted space in the bottom there with the black. I've always said that. The fact that she's not on the cover, yeah, there's another thing. This one, the only reason why I put it on the list is because I still feel like if you can find a raw one, I think it would be worth grabbing at a good price. Again, something that me and Ryan were talking about just prior to the show is knowing how to grade, right? And I feel like that's where you're probably going to make the most money, not just in this book, in any book, but maybe, look at some of the raw books and see if you can turn, a 9.6 or a 9.8 on your own. Because, yeah, like I said, these prices are 3 weeks old. This book probably wouldn't be on the list if I didn't make it like 3-4 weeks ago. Just because, like Ryan said, 1,500 US. That's tough because like when she does show up, what is this? Like a $5,000 book right off the hop? Like,
and it's 2011.
Yeah.
It's like it's only 10-year-old book.
It's just a little. little crazy to me. So yeah, if I were to do this book, or if I were to do this presentation, like, sooner than the 3 weeks ago when I did it, I probably wouldn't have put this book on the list now, knowing where it's at, because I don't believe that it's got more of a ceiling when she does show up at this price. It's just, too much.
Yeah, I mean, so like Miles obviously and Kamala Khan are going to be, I think, the biggest of the younger characters, and America Chavez probably one of those characters that kind of falls into like the next tier, just slightly below them. Like I don't know, I guess I would equate Miles and Kamala more to like Spider-Man and Wolverine level characters in the future, whereas America Chavez I don't think is going to get as big. So those are pretty high prices, but man, it really is hard to say what kind of potential she has. She doesn't have a whole lot of storylines so far, even in the comics.
Yeah.
So there's a lot of room for character development and growth there. They're already using her in live action, so that's gonna be interesting. Yeah, and one of the other things about this book is it was a pretty low print run, so there's it's probably a pretty high percentage of them in comparison to most other books that are graded. So finding something like this, raw that can get graded would be awesome. But man, you gotta wonder how many copies out there.
Yeah, I did look that up before this, and so right now graded there are 824 that have been graded, and I just saw someone say around 17,000 was the print run.
Yeah, so
I mean, the way I always like to look at that is you like break it out by state, and it's like 17,000 copies across 50 states. That's not a lot of copies.
Not at all
per state.
or 10. Wait, I don't want to. How many provinces do we have? Continue talking. I'll come back with it.
I have like 12 or something like that.
3 territories, and
I thought they count as.
I think it's 9 provinces or 10 provinces. I can't.
Not bad. I don't know.
Yeah.
I don't know Canadian shit like that.
I feel like you should know that.
Probably
like that should just be like coming off the top of your head. Like I don't feel like I should know how many Canadian provinces there are. But
let's stick with the states then. Yeah, let's stick with the states. Yeah, when you do that number with the states, that's not that many.
Wait a minute. Hold on. I got a question for you real quick, Newbie. How many states are there in the U.S.?
How many states? I thought it was 52.
Yeah. Huh?
No, hold on. 52, right?
Oh, at least you got that motherfucker wrong too. So we're good.
It's 50. It's an even number.
50 states.
Oh, I thought it was 52 with Hawaii and Alaska.
No.
No, that made 50.
Well, yo, geography. I'm good with geography, but clearly, yeah. Yeah. So 50 states. Okay. Hey, I was close.
That works. At least you don't know how many states there are if you don't know how many provinces are. Yeah. So that's cool.
Yeah, okay. I was closer to the provinces. I said there was 9. There's 10. So, comic Ozzy, thanks, man. And I said 3 territories, so I was right about that. So, Oh wait, no, I was right. 9 provinces. Okay, perfect. See, come for the comic.
9 provinces and 3 territories.
Yeah.
That's 12. I paid attention in school, man.
No, it's not a total, man. It's not a total.
I counted the territories, bro. That's all. That's all I'm saying.
Listen, we had 2 territories for the longest time. So, all right. Next book up. We've got Tomb of Dracula, number 10. Our boy, Mr. Hyper Combo Comics. This is one of his grail books. This is one of his favorite books, one of his favorite characters. But if you don't know, this is the first appearance of Blade.
Yeah, I would be buying this book right now. like this book, I would like. It's near the top of my list of undervalued Bronze Age keys that are out there, because I mean, you look at what some of these other Bronze Age books are doing. Like Marvel Spotlight 5, that huge sale that just happened, the 264,000 for 9.8, and then you've got Giant Size X-Men 1 9.8 selling for 72,000, that kind of stuff. Even Amazing Spider-Man 129 selling for, I think it hit 40,000, whereas this one is sitting around in a 9.8 like 28, and this one actually has a movie that's coming. You know, it has an existing franchise, an existing fan base, and it's a relatively low number of copies that are actually out there. You know, it's very similar to Special Marvel Edition. You know, I mean, it's not a book that was. I'm guessing it wasn't like super high prints, you know, when that one was coming out. And the only reason it has about 3,000 graded, and I'm guessing that's just because the prices have started to climb. But compared to like Amazing Spider-Man 129, which has, I think, like 15,000 graded copies. I mean, there's like nothing. And this one in the last year is only up about 130%. And I always caveat the onlys with that's still insane. You know, in comics, that's insane. But comparatively to what some of these other books are doing, it's nothing, especially when we know that this is coming, that Marvel, the rumors at least are all saying that Marvel wants to get into horror and everything like that. So this is a book that I would definitely be picking up right now if you have the means to. I mean, it's not cheap. I mean, it's still an expensive book. So you're going to have a hard time in a lot of copies getting it under $1,000. But yeah, if you can get this book, this is, I think, one of the best ones on there.
Listen, I think that this book, and some people might like, you know, if you're drinking your Corona, you're drinking your water, like I'll give you some time to like swallow. But this book, I think, has the same issue that Fantastic Four #1 had a year ago. If you go look at the prices that Fantastic Four #1 had, a lot of people, and I remember Gary made a video about it. He's like, I know it's expensive, but I think that this book, if you can afford it, buy it now, because that book is just going to go crazy. And you look at what that book did, already a crazy price point, and it's gotten to even a bigger one.
Fantastic Four #1 is like that. If I had any, like if I don't have the cash available to pick up one of those right now, but if I did, that is the #1 book I would pick up right now, because compared to, like, I mean, look at like what X-Men 1 has done. It's up like 300%. Amazing Fantasy 15, which is a much more expensive book, is up like 150%. That book is up like 70. It's done nothing. And there's a movie. Like like, it makes no sense to me why X-Men is exploding when there's no news on it. And Fantastic Four
has a movie.
Has very little.
Yeah. I think it's just that also has to do with the fact that, you know, 3 movies, you know, a lot of us are kind of like, let's see, right? And I think they're being strategic with that. But where I was going with the comment is, I think that this one kind of has the same problem. I think a lot of us are going to regret not buying it, and I get it. You know, you look at those prices, 9.6 for 12 grand. I get it, we're in tough times, but I mean, 12 grand for a 9.6. I mean, you're looking at a book that could probably get double that if they hit on it. I mean, the actor that's supposedly playing him is an A-lister, depending on what you classify as an A-lister. I mean, Blade, the whole horror stuff, like Ryan said, I mean, Marvel is trying to get to that point. We know what, you know, vampires do, you know, like that is still something, like zombies, right? Like people still dig the zombies, the vampires, all that. So I could see this being a really big book. I don't see it being a one-and-done character. I see it being a character that's kind of going to be around for a bit. For those reasons, I think that even like a 6.5 at $1,600, I think I'd still be a player at that, because this one, again, with the FOMO and all that, this book will easily double. So just for a flip purpose, this is still a book I would grab if I see it.
Yeah, for sure. I agree. You know, Blade's a great character. It's still, you know, pretty undervalued, I think, for you know what you're getting for it, you know, with the first appearance of Blade and the age of the book and the potential of the character and everything like that. It's gonna be interesting. Like, so the thing is, there's some really smart people over there at Marvel making these movies that you know seem to be paying attention to different things that are going on in comics, and horror is big, and Marvel can see that, and they're kind of leaning into it because there is that side of, you know, the Marvel universe, and it can play well on, you know, the big screen. It can play well in you know, television series, and everything, like, you know. So there's a lot of potential there. That I'm kind of curious. Like, so I think that there's the potential that there may actually end up being a small dip in this book after the first movie, just because I kind of think the first movie is going to end up being a little divisive. I think a lot of people are going to go into it expecting, Wesley Snipes' Blade.
Probably.
And I don't think we're going to get that. I think Marvel's going to lean more into, building that side of the universe. There's going to be a lot more story and everything like that. I think a lot of people are going to go in looking for that crazy action that we got with Wesley Snipes. That might not be as heavy in the first movie. So you may see some people sort of jump off the character after that. But I think once that whole horror side of the universe starts to get fleshed out more, these characters are going to be fucking huge. So.
Yeah, and I saw someone say, like, look at what's going on with horror books right now. And I mean,
exactly.
If people kind of like, if there's anybody here that watches my channel, they know like Golden Age stuff is something I really pay a lot of attention to. And one of the strongest segments in the comic market right now that I've seen is Golden Age pre-code horror. I mean, those books are extremely popular over the last like 6 months to 6 months to a year. They've gone up a ton. And so there's a lot of demand out there for horror related books. And so I think, that it's a market that, like you said, like Marvel, they can keep doing superhero stuff, but they need to expand their universe so people don't get tired of the same type of movies.
And remember too, right? Like I don't know if it's a rumor, but a lot of people have come out with the information that like Marvel is trying to do even more in the future, where they have like, I think it's like 5 to 8 movies a year, plus like all these shows. Like they basically want to be the talk of the town. And, I remember, I think I talked about it with Swaggle House, and I said, I'm like, I hope there's no comic fatigue, right? I really.
Oh, I mean that what do you call it? Like that, like sizzle reel trailer that they released, that like hype trailer.
Yeah.
I mean, when they were announcing like all the dates, where it was just like one after another, I was like, God, that's like a movie like every 2 months. It's insane.
Yeah.
So I mean, they're going to get a lot of my money. That's definitely true.
They're going to get a lot of everybody's money.
100%. It's just going to also be interesting where like some of the books go, because like, I always try to tell people, like even before COVID, right? Like not even just now, like even before COVID. And we're in like a different era now with COVID and with the shows, right? Because we never really did have the shows. But like even before, like people don't realize like a sequel to a movie or part 2 to the movie wasn't the following year. It was usually like 1.5 years or 2 years later. So when you do that, and you start talking about certain books, right? Like it takes a while, and there's big dips, there's ups and downs. And like if there's going to be 8 to 10 properties and all these shows going on, the value of books I think is going to take a hit too, right? Because we're kind of one of those communities where it's like, what's in front of me or what's popular, that's kind of where the spikes go, the FOMO and everything like that. So it's just going to be a little interesting to see what happens when like, all that craziness is going on.
Yeah. I was talking to my brother about that recently, and something that a comment he made is like, people can only focus on so many things at one time. Yeah. And so it's like the gaze of the comic market, it's like it turns to like different books, and then those ones spike, and then you move on to something else, and the next one spike. And that's, as we get a ton of movies out there and a ton of things that people can then look at, it will probably have some type of impact there.
Yeah. Because like no one's talking about Agatha, no one's talking about Nicholas Scratch, no one's talking about Torres from Winter Soldier. Like you look at these books that when those shows were going, when it was in front of our faces, right? Like how crazy were we going? Now, you could find those books very cheap, and it's just one of those things. So.
But the interesting thing is they're not quite as cheap as they were before those spikes. You know what I mean? So
yeah.
No, I mean that's definitely true. Like that White Vision sure as hell wasn't a $900 book.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, like so the spikes, definitely avoid those heavily. But even afterwards, some of these books are definitely staying a little higher in price than what they were before. So, and that's great for the hobby. It's great to see that.
Yeah. But it's not a $2,500 book anymore either.
Right, exactly.
It's not, because you guys
never was. Yeah, I don't know why people were spending that much money on it.
Remember when I said that, and I went on the show and said the community's crazy. Like you are crazy to put a White Vision with the price tag of Deadpool, like probably one of the more popular characters, ever.
Yeah, I mean, the shit was selling for more than his actual first appearance at one point. Like,
Yeah,
it was like, what the hell?
So yeah, we'll see. Hey, maybe that book makes it on the list. Next book on the list, keys I would still buy. Batman 181, first appearance of Poison Ivy, and I got to show love to DC, of course, because I think this is the only DC book on the list.
Well, yeah. So I've actually bought 2 copies of this within the last like 3 or 4 weeks. So I would definitely still buy this book. Both of the ones I bought were raw. The graded prices are getting really high in this books, but if you can find them raw for a decent price, I would definitely pick it up because it's a great cover. And I'm almost certain I talked about this maybe on the last show where because I think there was maybe a Batman 121 on the last one, and I said like there are very few characters that have their first appearance in the Silver Age, the first actual appearance. Most of them had their first appearance in the Golden Age. This is one of the few that has her first appearance in the Silver Age. So it's not like you're getting that caveat on the label where it's like first appearance in the Silver Age. You're getting the actual one.
Yeah.
So it is up a lot though, especially for a DC book. This one I checked is up about 180% in the last year, and for DC that is massive. And because I was looking at 4.5s, and a 4.5 was about $360 a year ago, and I had 1 or 2 of them, and they sat on eBay for months at like $400, and now they're going for $1,000.
Yeah.
And so I mean, it's like that people have definitely started looking a little bit at DC keys, and definitely not as much as Marvel, but most DC books I see going up maybe like 100%. So being up 180, that's huge. Now, if just a little warning, if you are going out and buying this book raw, something to always be aware of is that there's a centerfold of Batman and Robin in this one, and it is pulled out a lot. And so it's often missing, and that's why you'll see a lot of qualified, but like one of the ones I bought is missing the centerfold. But so just something to be aware of. They still have a lot of value with that missing centerfold, but it does hurt the value some. So something to look for if you're ever, make sure if you buy it raw, flip through the book.
Yeah.
Don't just assume that the person sold it to you complete, because that's something that can definitely happen.
Yeah, don't fall for the no. You can't open the book. Like if it's big money, make sure if it's raw, open it. This has been one of my favorite books. I know I don't talk about DC a lot because I'm more Marvel, but I always give love. I mean, I've talked many, many times about, Batman 181 and Batman 121 being 2 of my favorite books that I wish I had in my collection. I think there's such a big upside to Poison Ivy. You look at those prices. I mean, a 5.5 for let's call it $1,300 Canadian. There is no sign of Poison Ivy. There's no casting. No one's said anything about Poison Ivy showing up. But
she was an awesome character in the Harley Quinn cartoon, though. I'm guessing that may have had some drive to it, because that cartoon it was on HBO. That cartoon was awesome.
But that's what I was going to go with too, is the fact that like, okay, you look at the cartoon and she's on there with Harley. So like, what are people, the people that are watching that show, they're going to grow up, whether it be young kids or not, they're going to grow up being like, okay, Harley, and then Poison Ivy, right? And I think that that's going to generate a lot for this character. I've been on record to say, once Harley's done, the mantle's over, Poison Ivy is a great ace up your sleeve to bring out. DC keys are very undervalued. I could totally see this book one day in very high grade reaching that $3,000 mark. I mean, if a 6.5 sold for almost 2, if she ever shows up, if she's ever big, and I always talk about markability, and Hyper always laughs at me, but like, and Face too. But like, the markability of like, look at all the age groups that would dress up as Harley Quinn. Like you had like little girls, elementary, high school. I joked, strippers, this, older ladies, things like that, right? Poison Ivy can do the exact same thing for you. And if you have that markability, you have a good product. I can definitely see this book having a higher ceiling.
I mean, one of the things that also helped this book was there was a 9.8 that sold last year in like November for like 90,000. And so when you have like a huge sale like that, it trickles down to the lower grades. I mean, that's it. I mean, it's the same thing with like Marvel Spotlight 5 right now with that massive 9.8 sale. Like you've seen huge jumps in the like, especially the 9 books, like the 9.2s, 9.4s, 9.6s, because once people see someone's going to spend that on it, they start thinking, I need to spend more on the lower grades too.
I mean, yeah, for me, this book is still a buy. There's potential there for sure. It's a Batman character, like Brian pointed out. This is one of the Silver Age first appearances that you can still grab, so it's undervalued for that reason alone. There's still potential with DC. I mean, we can all still have hope that eventually somebody comes in there and sort of rights the ship and starts moving them in the right direction. I honestly do think it'll happen at some point.
Yeah.
Just because, I mean, like I can't foresee Warner Brothers and AT&T or anything like that really wanting to get rid of DC, just because maybe they don't have every movie be a success, but the ones that are successful are going to make enough money that they're not going to want to lose the potential that those intellectual properties bring. So I'm hoping we don't really see them like sell off DC or anything like that, and just sort of bring in someone to eventually play Kevin Feige role. And that would all play really well for Poison Ivy, because as we sort of, I don't know, I guess I don't know that saying her popularity is dwindling, but I guess as we sort of kind of look at Harley Quinn and sort of maybe cooling off a little more than she was the last few years, Poison Ivy is becoming more popular, and she's definitely one of the reasons that Harley Quinn's not going anywhere anytime soon, for sure, because as Poison Ivy gets more popular, Harley obviously plays a big role in anything they're going to do with them at this point. They just play too well together. You know what I mean? So I think there's a lot of potential to see Poison Ivy in future animated shit for sure. She's not going anywhere in the Harley cartoon, which is fantastic. If you're not watching it, definitely watch that shit.
Yeah, I was going to say the same thing. I was like, go watch that show.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, it's great.
It is extremely adult from the very beginning.
Yeah.
like the opening minute.
For sure.
It's brutal.
And of course, there's always potential there to see her in live action. Someone mentioned, in chat that they got to find the right actress for her, and yeah, that's going to be a big part of it, because they've always played into more of like the sex appeal of Poison Ivy, and she's become sort of a different character over the years. She's kind of got like a more snarky, sassy attitude to her now, so they got to find the right actress that can sort of balance that type, of character.
Miley Cyrus.
I don't think that's the one.
I think Blake Lively. I mean, she's in my top 5. So, yeah.
That could potentially work.
Right? Just saying.
I mean,
but again, the other thing too, and hopefully you guys are paying attention, is what Ryan said. This book is the actual first appearance, right? Most of the Batman ones are in that gold age, right? And here you have the first appearance, not first appearance in Silver Age, but the actual first appearance. All right. And I think I lied to you guys, because there is 2 DC books on this list. Next up, we've got Wolverine #1. Now, Ryan, we've talked about this with Chris from Vancouver Comic Junkie. Face, we've talked about this. So many goddamn Wolverine books, but we got Wolverine #1 solo series from 1982.
And there are a ton of these out there too. I mean, there are over 14,000 on the census right now. And I looked at 9.6s for this book, and just in 9.6, there's 3,800 in change. And so there are a ton of, I mean, I watch the 3 Men in a Basement channel, and like Otto, he's submitted like, I feel like 20 or 30 copies of that book alone. So yeah, I mean, they're definitely out there. So it's one that I would say it's not a raw. It's a great book to pick up, to try to do what he's doing, try to submit it and see if you can get those 9.6s and 9.8s, because the prices have gone up quite a bit on them. I mean, 9.8s are over $1,000 US.
Yeah.
They've trickled down, or they've come down a little bit. I've seen prices, falling below 1,000, but they did hit like 1,200 or so on the high end. But even 9.6s are hitting, mid 300s. And so it's well worth it if you can find, a bunch of copies, somewhere, and, in some, just an LCS, if they're not too expensive, and risk sending them in. Cause like the thing I saw though was that 9.6s haven't moved up as much as 9.8s. 9.8s up around 200%. 9.6s are only up about 110%. So that could be something where maybe there's something in that grade, in the 9.6 or 9.4 range, if you're looking to buy graded copies. But 9.8s, I don't know if I'd be paying $1,000 right now. I'm sure when Wolverine shows up, they're going to go even higher. I mean, so I know that'll happen, but right now, without any news or anything like that, I'd probably hold off on a 9.8 purchase. But raw books, I would definitely pick up raw books and try to submit those.
So I'm with Coco and Miguel. I've never really been a fan of this cover, and
issue 2, that's my favorite cover of this run. I love issue 2.
There's way nicer covers. The only reason this one is on my list is for this reason, and I thought Ryan was going to touch on it, and maybe Face was planning to, but all the Wolverine stuff is kind of just out of reach. I mean, you look at 180, 180 up until like 6 months ago, I mean, was the poor man's 181. It was worth nothing. It was, you could find them. Now, I mean, good luck trying to find a 180 at a reasonable price. It's just not going to happen for you. And then you look at the trickle effect, where you get into this one and you get into the limited series, and even that one is $1,000 or $1,500. And then you get into the craziness that happened, 2.5 months ago with Marvel Presents 72, the Origin. I mean, that's even.
What's that one doing? I know it hit around 800. Is it still up? I haven't checked that.
I haven't checked. I had 3 copies. I have one raw that is a 9.8 candidate. I sold my 9.6 for like $80, but yeah, I haven't checked it, just simply because I'm not like thinking of selling it yet. But you look at the trickle effect, and it's like even that one got to $1,000, a $2 book, like a week prior to people going crazy over Wolverine, and that one reached $1,000. It's just crazy. But like you said, Ryan, once Wolverine comes, I mean, obviously the people who have a 181, a 180, those are just going to get out of reach for so many people. So like, this is probably going to be the best bet. This is probably going to be a cheap option for them to have. And for those reasons, I feel like there is a bit of money to be made and to make an investment here.
Yeah. I watched a 181 raw sell this last weekend that was missing 2 pages, including the opening splash page, for $1,920. I mean, like that book is out of control. It is really, really expensive. And I'm not saying it doesn't necessarily deserve high prices, but there's that's a lot of money. But even like the 180, I remember like maybe it was like a month ago, I saw an 8.0 sell for like $3,000 or 3,200. And I texted my brother, because I have a 9.0, and I was like, is my 9.0 worth $4,000? I was like, what the hell is this? I was like, I think I paid like $1,100, for that. And I paid like full price like a year ago. And so it's like, I don't know. Like those books Wolverine is just, it's nuts with no news, with no news on that character.
Yeah. It's just going to go nuts. I feel like this is going to be the book, Wolverine fans, we're going to see more of these later down the road than Hulk 180 and Hulk 181. Just for that reason. I think I think 181 and 180 are just like out. Like they're going to be, the second there's a casting, a photo, whatever. Like it's just going to be out. No one's going to be able to touch it. I shouldn't say nobody, but like, the average collector.
The rule I use with those types of books now, I heard somebody say this a little while ago, and I think it's a really good piece of advice is do not sell your copy until you've secured your next copy. You know, and so because somebody was talking about that, I think they were talking about with respect to, I think, an AF-15, you know, where it's like if you're selling, because like that book jumped thousands. I mean, like a 2.5 went from going for, or maybe, I don't know, it was like a 1.0 or something, went from going for about 10 grand to like 20. And if you sold it at 10 and you were hoping to like use that money to buy something else, it's like tough shit, like you're now out of luck. And so I think that's something that's for these bigger books. That's really how you have to treat them now. Just if you're looking to upgrade, don't sell your copy to buy the next copy. You need to buy that next copy and then sell your copy.
Yeah. I mean, that makes sense.
Yeah.
So this one's interesting because, there's both a lot of upside and actually a lot of downside to it too, because like Ryan said, there hasn't been any news yet on the character. So, getting these spikes right now is just sort of people getting prepared because, it's Wolverine. Obviously, we know he's gonna show up at some point. That's definitely one of the, I guess it plays into both. It's a downside, because there hasn't been any news, but knowing that he is probably coming is definitely a plus. There's a shit ton of copies of these out there, but it seems like there's a lot of Wolverine hoarders out there too. Like there's people that just buy up shit tons of copies of everything Wolverine because, there's a lot of 181s out there and everything like that too. And,
well, it's like if you
follow on those books too. So
if you follow Golden Age Guru, he at one point said he was trying to put together a short box of 181s.
Right? Like I believe it.
Holy crap.
Yeah, I mean, that's what I'm saying. There's a lot of Wolverine hoarders out there. And it makes sense because, he is such a huge character.
Yeah, where you like I could do the same thing if I wanted to live out of my car. Like
right. I think the interesting thing about this for me is the gap between the 9.6s and the 9.8s. Obviously that plays into the fact that it's a modern book and everything like that. So, being it's one of the newer books, people want it in the higher grade, but that's still a huge fucking gap between the two.
Yeah.
And I'm in complete agreement with Ryan. Like I would definitely grab a 9.4, 9.6 before I would look into grabbing those 9.8s with that big of a price difference. That being said, in the long run, yeah, obviously even the 9.8s are probably going to go up too, because pretty much everything Wolverine is just going to go up over time.
Yeah,
that's just.
And somebody on the chat said, it's Comic Journey. He said Wolverine is probably the best spec character not in the MCU today. Yeah, that's 100%. Ryan, we've talked about it. Vancouver Comic Junkies talked about it. Hyper, because I know that's one of his grails. A lot of people are saying, like that book, once he shows is just gonna, and I get it, he's already shown up, but like once he shows up again in this new wave of X-Men and the new wave of how we're gonna get the X-Men and Wolverine himself, like that book is just gonna go nuts. I mean, you're talking about a very, very popular character. And yeah, that book is just,
for sure.
It hasn't slowed down. So
comic speculation moves today are very different from comic speculation moves like 5 years ago.
Yeah.
Like people, I saw somebody comment about how when Abomination showed up in that trailer and they're like, but he's already shown up. Why is it going up now? And it's like, nobody cared. Abomination, like back with the first Hulk. With the first MCU Hulk movie.
It was a shitty version of Abomination.
Yeah. Now it's like it's people react much stronger to books showing up in TV or movies, that kind of thing. So
yeah. Well, let's get on to the next book, guys. Next book up is Amazing Spider-Man 194, first appearance of Black Cat. Now,
I do really like this book, but I have sold all my copies of this book because it's gone up a lot. And there are a lot of them out there, and the most common grade is actually a 9.6. So there are a lot of, despite it being a black cover, a lot of pretty high grade copies that are actually out there. And so, I mean, 9.6s even are hitting around $1,500 US now. And so it's up, you know, it's one of those things where I'm sad because when I sold mine like a year ago, they were, you know, like 500 or 600, but it's up, you know, about 200%. And that's that mark, you know, where I start going, okay, I think this is where I'm going to, you know, I would not be buying that book at this moment. I'd, you know, watch and see if it slows down, especially because I don't think anybody is really expecting to see this character coming in the real near future. I'm not, I mean, who knows? Maybe they'll surprise us and she shows up in the next Spider-Man movie with like a billion other characters that are apparently showing up in that movie. But yeah, I mean, I saw the comment like, yeah, Black Cat is going to be a hot character. I mean, yeah, she is extremely popular. You know, I mean, she's a great character. Artists love to draw her. You know, so it's definitely a you know, a great character. But right now, I wouldn't be paying those numbers for that book.
Chris, ASM 194 equals snore. The only reason I put this one on was, you know, we have Morbius coming. You know, we have Spider-Verse, you know, we have Spider-Man stuff coming. So like, who knows? Also, you know, I like to remind people that like, you know, with this multiverse and stuff like that, you have to keep in mind that in Andrew Garfield's Spider-Man, we were introduced to Felicia, right? And we were introduced to her wearing black and white. And I think that maybe it's just me just kind of reading between the lines. But like when I saw that, I was kind of like, And you know, I was kind of trying to, you know, get a lot of copies back then. And then I just kind of gave up on it because I thought, you know what, it's not going to happen. I agree with Ryan. I wouldn't, and it's tough because this is the show that we're doing is keys I would be buying right now. I would buy this book if I found it at a reasonable price. I would not chase it. If it's in good condition and raw, I might make a play for it. But look at a 9.6, almost $1,500. That's way too much because even when this character shows up, like usually the rule of thumb I have is like, do I see it doubling, right? Like when a character shows up, that's kind of the success rate, right? Like when we see these characters show up, you know, that's what happens. They double. And I just don't see this price doubling to almost, you know, $2,500 to $3,000 in a 9.6 or 9. I just don't because there's so many of them. So I don't know. I'm weary of this one, but I feel like if you found a good deal, it's not a bad book to just kind of have, you know, in.
You know, and I caveat that with everything I say. You know, it's like if I see the book for way below fair market value, yeah, I'll buy it. You know, like that's. I won't turn that down, but I'm not going to pay $1,600 right now for a 9.6.
Newbie's catching my good angle too. So, well, I mean, okay, this book it would be a buy, but I guess it's not for me like right now because like I kind of feel like the Spider-Man side of the Marvel universe is a little bit of a clusterfuck at the moment with what exactly is going on over there. I mean, obviously we know that we're getting Tom Holland, you know, he plays a part in the MCU in the roles that he's been in over there. And the new Spider-Man movie will tie into that.
Yeah.
There's been some mention that Morbius and Venom are going to have ties, you know, potentially to the MCU and everything like that. But I mean, how deep is that going to be? Is it one of those things where they can potentially cut it off and say, yeah, it doesn't really exist as part of the MCU?
Yeah.
You know, who knows? But the thing is, there's a lot going on right now with Spider-Man too, and I think that's one of the big things that are causing, you know, these prices. People are excited about pretty much everything Spider-Man. We're getting a new, you know, Spider-Man live action, Far From Home. We're getting Into the Spider-Verse. You know, Venom 2. We know Morbius is coming. There's more talk about all kinds of other Spider-Man shit, and that's all great. But people are getting very excited about, you know, everything Spider-Man, and there really hasn't been any news on Black Cat yet. She's sort of one of those characters where, like, I'm gonna be honest, I don't want to see her come into Far From Home. I just think there's no reason for it, and that would be some shit they really don't need to add to the movie. Throwing her in there, from what it sounds like they've already got planned in that movie. Into the Spider-Verse, I don't really care if she shows up in that because, you know, still a cartoon. It'd be cool, but it's not really MCU necessarily. Morbius has potential because she's got ties there, but again, that would be more like a cameo, and it almost seems like it'd be a disservice to the character. Like she should kind of get her own. I mean, not necessarily her own movie, but they should center a Spider-Man movie around her, you know, or at least have her be a pretty big feature of it. And I think we're still a bit ways away from that. So I think there's going to be a time where we'll see a little bit more of a dip in this book, and that might be when you want to pick it up going forward. So,
yeah,
just my opinion. But,
yeah. And like Ryan said, there's so many copies of this book. So, yeah, but $1,600. I mean, I always play that compare game. Like $1,600, I could get a nice book. You know, $1,600, I could kind of maybe get one of these. Werewolf by Night 32. I mean, please don't look at that 9.4 sold. That's probably gone up. Like I said, I did this presentation.
Yeah, that book is a little more pricey.
So we got Werewolf by Night 32. Yeah. If you don't know what this book is, it's probably going to be one of the hottest books of the year, probably into next year. But it is the first appearance of Moon Knight.
Yeah, I think 9.2s. Man, I think they're up around $7,000 US now. And I know Vancouver Comic Junkie loves this book. He's got his pile of them.
Disgusting. No, it's disgusting. It's disgusting how many copies he has. Like, there should be Canadian law where you get fined for having that many copies, okay?
Now, I don't know if I'd pick up this book right now. There are certain grades you might want to.
Yeah.
You know, there are certain grades you might want to pick up this book, but those higher grade copies, they are really, really expensive now. I mean, like an 8.5 just sold for like $5,000. You know, I mean, that is a lot for a Bronze Age book. You know, especially when I know he has a kind of like a niche fan base, but I'd say a lot of people aren't familiar with Moon Knight.
No,
you know, and so it's not like a big broad character, you know, like Batman, Superman, Spider-Man, you know, any of these guys. Like he's like a crazy Batman, you know, like that's basically what he is. He's Marvel's crazy version of Batman, and like it's just, I don't know, it's up a lot. And so while, yeah, I would be looking for books for this. If you can find maybe like a mid-grade copy for a decent price or a lower grade copy, but man, those higher grades, if you're getting into the 8s and the 9s, they are really, really expensive.
Yeah. I am a player at this book in a 3.0 to 5.5 range. I think that's where I cap out. Again, I've looked online for this book. I've, you know, eBay and all that stuff. It is way overpriced. I'm hoping as things open up, you know, cons and more things and shops, maybe I find one. Maybe one comes my way. I'm not chasing it. Like I've kind of just, you know, it is one of the hottest books. It's on like every top 10 list now. The show is what? I think the show for this comes out next fall. So, I mean, there's still a bit a ways away for it to kind of cool down, but it's not going to be long, right? I mean, it's
a book that keeps surprising me. It hasn't been cooling down. You know, like I keep thinking I'm going to see it cool down, and it doesn't.
So, Vancouver Comic Junkie is saying March. So the show comes out in March. So, yeah, I mean, if it hasn't cooled off by the end of the summer, so like I'm thinking like maybe September to November. But after that, I mean, you have to think that come November, come December, there's probably trailers for it. There's probably more leaked photos. There's probably something going on where we get a little bit of the story. So, yeah, I think time is running out on this, but those lower grades are probably going to go up extremely high. I think there's a lot of money to be made with this because I think that they got something here. And I'm not too familiar with a lot of Moon Knight, but I do think that they're going to put a good product on there. The relationships that Moon Knight has in sense of like characters that he comes across, you know, Spider-Man, Daredevil, Punisher. I think if you kind of just read the tea leaves and you kind of see where these characters are coming, street level, things like that, I think there's a lot of room for this book to grow. I think Moon Knight's going to be one of those popular characters down the road.
Yeah, I'm actually I'm picking this up in a couple weeks. There's
What grade?
I'm hoping it's gonna be a 9.8.
Holy shit.
It's gonna be that facsimile edition that I grab off the shelf that's coming out. But nah, you know,
Yeah, man. Bye.
yeah, this is an awesome book. The problem is it's sort of it's just kind of one of those things that's been everything good is happening for Moon Knight, I guess, is the best way to explain it. Like, they got an awesome actor. The character is, you know, an awesome character, and people know just enough, at least, about Moon Knight, I think, in general, across the board, to definitely be very interested in the premise of the character and everything like that. So yeah, these prices are pretty high, but I don't think you're really going to see a lot of cooling down, because people are really excited about the Moon Knight series coming out, and it probably rightfully so. Oscar Isaac is great. Hopefully he knocks it out of the park. And then once we get that, man, I don't think you're going to see prices really drop off after that. I mean, he's a great character that's going to be brought to the forefront. You know, he's getting a new series and everything like that. And it's one of those books that's just going to start to just increase in value constantly over time. It might not be huge increases, but yeah, over the years, you're just going to see it keep going up, I think. So if you're going to grab it, I mean, this is probably the time. This is probably the lowest prices you're going to see forever.
I hate playing this game. I hate playing this game where I say, hey, in 2013, this book was this price. But I just want to let you guys know, there was a Werewolf by Night 32 in 8.0 for $275 back in 2013 in one of my shops. And I was like, it's Moon Knight. That's too, and I had just gotten back into collecting. So I was like, you know, $275, you know, that was a lot of money for a character that I just didn't really care about, didn't really think that was coming, like, you know, later that month or later that year. Like, I could see it. And, you know, it just goes to show you. I mean, obviously you don't want to play that game, you know, what this book was years ago, but yeah, just to give you some reference, I mean, from $275 in an 8.0 to basically almost $3,000. That's crazy.
Yeah, it's definitely one of those books that I try to not remember the copies that I've owned, because I sold a 9.2 last year for like $2,800, which was a great price at the time.
Yeah,
you know, like, that's the thing. Like, that was the I think I maybe had the high sale at that time, but now it's like, yeah, it's like $7,000, $8,000 for that book. It's just, it's one of these things. Nobody could predict what happened with these books over the over the last few months.
Yeah, for sure.
Hmm.
Hmm.
Batman 121, first appearance of Mr. Freeze.
Yeah, no, I mean, this book always surprises me how little it actually goes up.
Yeah.
You know, because it is an awesome cover. You know, again, like we mentioned, it's his actual first appearance, and it's early Silver Age. I think it's 1959. You know, so it's an early Silver Age book, and so it's one of those books that I don't understand why it doesn't go up more. It's definitely, I consider it a very undervalued book right now. And it's very hard to find it in high grade, and even mid grade. It's a rare book. Like, I have a copy and mine's a 1.0. You know, I saw somebody has a 1.5, like mine's a 1.0. You know, and so like, finding this book in anything this is one of those books where it's like a 5.0 is the equivalent to like an 8.0 in other books. You know, it just doesn't exist out there in these high grades. And, you know, I checked the census, there's only 695 graded copies. So there are very few of these just in general. And so it's not one of those things that I don't know how often they'll really use that character. I mean, he's a pretty specialized, character. But it's still, I think he's a cool character, a cool cover, a great book. I feel like this one should be worth more than it is today.
I mean, it's hard to disagree with what you're saying. I know we've already seen him. As long as a jacked Austrian man does not play him when they bring this character back, I think that there's still a lot of value to have. It's, one of the big villains that Batman has. If you watch that 90s cartoon, I mean, he was around for a lot of it. I know Joker was, obviously Penguin, but like Mr. Freeze did have a lot of run-ins with them through the show. Again, 6.5 going for almost $4,300. If he were to ever show up, you can guarantee that book is going to go up. I mean, a 3.0 at $1,800. Yes, it's a lot of money to the average person, but I mean, when you start getting into these big keys, I mean, you're going to find that $1,800 is not a lot. I mean, you're a lot of people are saying, hey, if I would have, paid $1,800 or $1,500 for this book 2 years ago, I would have. Like, that's kind of some of the regret you may have, right? And again, Mr. Freeze is, what can they really do? It's a special character, but nevertheless, once he shows up, even if it's just a one and done, I mean, there is money to be made there.
Yeah. Got a love-hate relationship with this book, this character, everything. I mean, it's an old Batman book. And like Ryan pointed out, there's not a lot of copies on the census at all, let alone in high grade or anything like that. So, if you come across it, especially at good prices, it's definitely worth a pickup. The problem is, it's Mr. Freeze. And while Mr. Freeze is an awesome character, I love Mr. Freeze. The best thing about Mr. Freeze is the worst thing about Mr. Freeze. He has such a great story, that they did first, really in the animated series, with making him more of a tragic villain and, trying to save his wife and everything like that.
Yeah.
But by doing that, they sort of perpetually locked him into that one fucking storyline, because he's always going to be doing some shit to try and power his suit or get something to save his wife, and I mean, other than that, you don't have much motivation for him as a villain. So yeah, somebody said in chat that they kind of need to reinvigorate Mr. Freeze, and I don't know, maybe a whole new take on him is the way to go. It's a tough call, because like I don't know how receptive people would be to a different take on Mr. Freeze, just because that is such a classic storyline. But yeah, like I said, you sort of lock him into that one singular motivation there, and other than that, it becomes sort of an uninteresting character.
And I think it's interesting you pointed out the animated series, because that is 100% who I think of when I think of Mr. Freeze, is because
exactly.
That's the show I grew up watching. And so you'd think with how a lot of these books have moved up because of people, kind of reminiscing about childhood and everything like that, you'd think that would be another thing that might drive that book up, like people remembering that character from that series. But yeah, it still hasn't. I agree, though. He really does seem to be kind of like pigeonholed in that one role of, like, mourning over his wife and everything, which it does make it a great storyline. But yeah, they haven't.
How many times do you tell the same story?
Yeah.
You know what and I've had this conversation actually recently, was if they were to do a Mr. Freeze like they did a Joker, like with, like a solo project that has nothing to do with the current, what they're doing currently, I think they could have something, because they could touch on that, the thing with the wife and all that. And, I think it would be a good foundation for the character moving forward. So.
Yeah, that could be an interesting take if they did. Well, they could even, throw Batman into the movie and just do like a sort of Mr. Freeze origin story.
Could, yeah.
And everything. And that could be a good movie.
That's one of the things I never understand with Warner Brothers. It's like they have this like thing they do that's like a big success, and they're like, no, we're not going to do that again.
Yeah, right. Exactly.
It's like, no, that worked well. We made a ton of money. Let's not repeat that formula. It's like, come on, like give the people what they want.
Yeah, see, Zen agrees with me. Yeah, like that psychological level in many ways. I feel like if they were to do that with all the, like you look at like a character like the Riddler, you know what I mean? Like Mr. Freeze, like just there's so many possibilities there that I'm like, okay, you just had that be a success. Like that Joker movie was a success.
Yeah.
You know, like it's, I don't know. All right, guys. Next book, one that we've been talking about a lot actually throughout the chat, and a lot of people have been talking about it, but it is Hulk 180. First cameo, first full appearance, whatever. I'm not going to argue with you. You decide whatever you think. You decide what it is. I'm just going to say Hulk 180. I'm not going to say it's a cameo. I'm not going to say it's a first appearance.
Yeah, I mean, it's hard for me to ever say not to buy like a Hulk 180 or a 181. I mean, they're such big books, and just, you know, for one of the most popular characters out there. And I mean, this one definitely is, you know, it's not as good as 181. You know, he's not on the cover. Like, it's kind of the fact of the matter. But it's one of those things where I know a lot of people like to like focus on like cameo versus first full and all that. And you know, and that I think some people think that if they convince people that it's the first appearance, that it'll be worth more than the other one. It doesn't work that way. You know, like, you know, because there are other books like, what is it? Conan the Barbarian 23 and 24. She's on the cover, Red Sonja, of 24, but 23 is worth more money. You know, it doesn't always work out the same way for every book. If people just kind of things go one way or the other, and it is what it is. But for this book, it like I was mentioning earlier, it is up a ton in the last year. You know, like I said, like an 8.5 recently, just this week, sold for over $4,000. And that's US.
Yeah.
You know? So I can't really recommend buying it right now. Now what I would be doing is, I have been seeing like those books that moved up a lot, like these big ones that there are actually quite a few copies of, like Giant Size X-Men 1, Hulk 181, Hulk 180, those kinds of things. I've seen those prices start to like drift down, you know, like in some cases 20 to 30% from where they peaked in May. And so if you see that, you know, maybe try picking up a book on that type of retreat, because I definitely do not see these books returning to their prior prices, like ever. And so I think like somebody said, you know, Wolverine books, they're always going to trickle up over time. And so if you this summer, I think is probably the time to really be looking for them. Because I was talking about this with Omega Red, Jake, and he had made a comment, like we were saying, like I think that's who I was talking about, is that we expect that we'll probably get something from Marvel in the before the end of this year that at least teases mutants. And once you get that, then
game over.
I think that, yeah, these books are they're going to just skyrocket up. So I would watch them this summer. If you see those prices start to trickle down, I'd pick one up, because I think once we get back into kind of November, December timeframes, those prices are just going to start climbing again.
I think it's actually important that you just brought up that 20 to 30%, and the fact that, you know, you play around with a lot of numbers. I think a lot of people get scared when they see that, right? Like 20 to 30%. But realistically, I mean, that's
up 250%.
Yeah.
So it's like it's down 20 to 30, but it's still up, like, you know, after that, like 200. So it's not like these books are like tanking or anything like that.
No, but I think people see it and they're like, oh my God, it's gone down 20 to 30%. Maybe it's time to sell, or maybe no. It's still going to go up. And I mean,
that's when I buy.
Yeah. You know? Right? And it's just patience. You just have to have patience. I think it would be stupid for you to sell a Hulk 180, a Hulk 181, a Giant Size X-Men 1 right now. I just think it would. I think you just need to wait. This is where people make more of the money, is with the whole patience. And yeah, this one I had a chance to buy a 7.5 for, I think it was $1,000 Canadian. Around the same time I bought my 181. I kind of was just like, you know what? I'm going with 181. for many reasons. I truly believe it's 181. He's on the cover. It's a better cover. All that jazz. I get the importance of 180, but yeah, now I mean it's obviously getting its heyday. I think I talking to people that own 181 or the other, or 180, like they always say the same thing. They're like, "Oh, I wish I had both of them," and sometimes people do. But that's what everybody says. They're like, oh, I have 181. I wish I had 180, or I have 180. I wish I had 181. I think you're going to see a lot of that, when the cooling happens, or how it's not going to go up like how it did in May. It's just going to kind of go up slowly because that's what happens, right? I think you're going to see that. A lot of people are just going to try to collect both and keep both, because once Wolverine comes, it's game over. You're not going to be able to afford these for a very long time.
And I think that's the thing a lot of people forget, especially if they're relatively new getting into comics within like the last, I don't know, 6 months or a year, is that comic prices generally are pretty stable, and they maybe move up kind of like with like inflation type of thing, seeing prices climb the way they do. Like if you see them start to level off or dip a little bit, like that's just things reaching a new baseline. That's all I interpret it as. And I wouldn't worry too much about it.
Yeah. See, I agree with both of you guys. I mean, there might be some small dips here and there, but I don't think you're going to see anything significant as far as this issue losing price. And maybe I'm weird in how I collect, but I never really care about the cameo first appearance argument or whatever. If it's enough of an issue to be an argument, then I just want to grab both issues.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Because at that point, you really can't go wrong, because at least half the market is going to be interested in either issue that you've got. If you're looking at potentially, reselling in the future. So, a cameo of, I'm pretty sure this is not the cameo appearance of the Hulk. I think it's a cameo appearance of some other character. But he was pretty cool too. I think people like that guy. I don't know. So
just a little.
So yeah, you can't go wrong with this. Like Ryan said, it is almost hard to say buy at these prices, but shit, again, it's really hard to count on any significant dips in the future. So it is kind of one of those ones where it's like you almost want to pick it up as soon as you can, because these prices are going to be the lowest that you're going to see going forward.
Yeah, like I mean, my general rules when I purchase books, I bend them for certain books. I bend them for the big keys that I've learned after watching enough sales over the last few years, that certain books you just only get so much of a discount on, right. And at the best case. And so
yeah, exactly.
When you get a chance, like if this book peaked at $4,000 in May or whatever, and at some price, and you see it down at like 3,600 or 3,500, it's like, yeah, that's probably the time to pick up that book.
Yeah, yeah, exactly.
It'll see those higher prices again.
Yep.
Yeah. It's, if I find one at a good price, I wouldn't mind, kind of pairing it up with my 180, my 181. Sorry. But yeah, and I get the argument. People say, like it's an iconic last panel, and like, I know more people that want it, not in a slab and things like that. But yeah, just for the importance of the book, I mean, I'm gonna slab this all day. But yeah, not chasing it. If it comes my way, I'm definitely gonna grab one though. One book that, not playing this game, but sometimes we do. And sorry, and the last comment I was going to make is, I feel like Hulk 180, Hulk 181, Giant Size X-Men 1, like I feel like a lot of those books are going to be ones that, with the price points of today, we're going to look back, or we're going to look 5 years from now, and then we're going to look back and be like, oh, I should have bought it at that price, right? Because we even do that now with like what the price was like a year ago or a month ago, right? Like I hear people talking about 181 all the time, like, oh, I should have bought that 3.0 for $5,000 3 months ago. And now they're like, oh, now I'll have to, end up with a 1.0 or a 2.0 for the same price, right? So I think that these certain books might have that, where like even at the price of, a 8.0 for 2,800. I feel like some people might be like, oh, I should have bought that like 3 years ago when, you know, it was. So we'll see. I say that because this next book is actually exactly what happened to me. Fantastic Four #4, first Silver Age appearance of Submariner.
Yeah. So this book is a really tough book to come across.
Yeah.
It is. There are not a lot of them out there, and they are really expensive. And you know, like there was I was watching the Heritage auction last weekend, and a 5.0 sold for 9,600. So they have absolutely just exploded in price. And it's I mean, it's all because of that whether it's real or not, we don't really know that he's going to be the villain in the Black Panther movie. That has definitely spiked this book. And I mean, if you come across a copy that somebody's still pricing it like it was, you know, a month ago, because that's the tricky thing with this book, is that because there are so few of them and they do not sell very often, you have to price them off of other sales. You know, like the most common book for this is most common grade for this book is a 4.0, but a 4.0 hadn't sold for about a year, at least on Go Collect. And so I had to price it off of a 5.0 sale and a 2.5 sale that happened. So I was estimating that a 4.0 is about $6,000 because a 5.0 sold for 9,600 and a 2.5 sold for 31. You know, and so it's like, if you happen to catch, you know, one that somebody's pricing it like it was a month ago, I would 100% pick up this book. You might want to, if you were looking to buy it right now, I don't know if I'd be paying that 9,600 because people are reacting definitely to that recent news. And so you might get like a little bit of a dip because I don't think they're even filming for Black Panther yet or anything like that. So that's a ways off. And if I've learned anything, you know, over the last few years, is that collectors tend to have a relatively short memory. And it's like Newbie was saying, you know, if it's not right in front of your face, they kind of forget about it. Yeah. And so, yeah, it'll spike. And then if there's no news for a year, I mean, that's what happened with Eternals. I mean, Eternals spiked to $2,000 in a 9.8, then dropped to 900, and now is back up around $3,000. You know, and it's just nobody heard anything for a year because of COVID with that, and so it's out of sight, out of mind. And I think the same thing will probably happen with this book. So you might have a chance to pick it up at a decent price, but yeah, if this character really is showing up, they're definitely not going to one and done that character. They'll have him as like a villain in that movie that maybe transitions to kind of that hero type role.
Yeah.
So
this book is one of the books that I wish I would have started a YouTube channel years ago. I wish I would have started doing spec, you know, before it was like cool. I talked about this book so much with my buddy Norm at the time and Neil, because that's who I started collecting comics with when I first started off. And I say that because, you know, I have a lot of stories about Niagara Falls Comic-Con, but that was, you know, that's the closest con to me where I'm at. And then there's Toronto, obviously, and some of the, you know, Buffalo and Northern New York State stuff. But Niagara Falls is like my home con. And I remember in 2012, 2013, I can't remember. I was so big on this book. I love Fantastic Four. Couldn't, you know, obviously get Tales of Suspense 39, and I wanted this book. And I passed up 2 chances to get a 7.0. I think was like $300, $300 or $350, somewhere around there. At the con, the guy had 2 books, and I said, you know, because back then, I mean,
that 5.0 sale must really hurt.
Yeah, man. So, you know, it's one of those that, you know, you kind of just take with great salt. I mean, you know, who would have thought it would get to it? I mean, what would a number like that be? A 7.0 now would probably go for what, 14, 15 maybe? But like
a 9.0 sold a couple weeks ago for like 26 or 27.
Yeah. So who would have thought? But regardless, I mean, Fantastic Four, you're talking about an early book. You got a 12 center. He's on the cover. I mean, yes, it's Silver Age, but I mean, it's one of the nicest Fantastic Four covers. You got all the characters there from the crew. You got him. Just, I love everything about this book. Even in those mid grades, this is a beautiful book. Like if you've never seen this book in person, just the colors on it is beautiful. Like that tan background. It's one of my favorite books ever, to be honest with you. And some people might be like, oh my God, really? No, it is. It's one of my favorite books out there. Unfortunately, you know, I was quietly trying to find one for the last like year and a bit. Just never found something that I was really comfortable paying. And then, yeah, of course, you know, with that rumor coming, you know, it kind of ruined that. But I mean, there are some lower grade options, like in the 3.0, 3.0, 4.0 maybe, because now with Ryan saying, you know, 9,600, it's a bit too much. But in that 3.0, maybe 4.0, I could be a player because I do see this character having a big and bright future. So it could see an increase in dollars down the road.
And this is one of those that I think it's a little more acceptable to go for the first Silver Age appearance.
Yeah.
You know, because his first appearance is Marvel Comics #1. So
Good luck,
it's
good luck
like,
finding that one. So
yeah.
Yeah, good luck finding that. Yeah, Namor's a cool character. I think the most interesting part about him is exactly what is going on with the rights to the character. I know Marvel's heavily implied that they're bringing him in over the years, but they've done that for so long without actually having the rights to the character. I'm not sure if they even have the rights back yet or not. I don't know where that stands because I honestly haven't looked into it. But you know what? The thing is, none of that shit even matters because this is such a classic, you know, Silver Age key book that the MCU spec, yeah, it'll definitely, you know, affect it in that it'll have spikes like whenever they actually bring Namor to the MCU. But even when it hits those spikes, I don't really foresee it coming back down. It's just because, you know, it's so old that you can't really even find copies out there anyway. So
Yeah, it's like it's Fantastic Four #4. I mean, like that's like
there's no reason for this book to lose value.
it's the same as like the early ASM books. You know, it's like ASM 1 through 6. It's like they're all just they're huge books.
Yeah, there's just no real reason they should lose value ever.
Yeah.
Ryan, issues 1, and just for the sake of argument, because of Fantastic Four, 1 to 52, what would you take? ASM or Fantastic Four?
Fantastic Four.
Yeah,
I wouldn't even think about it.
No, okay. Oh, good. Smart man. That's where I would be. So,
Fantastic Four is so dense with keys. It's crazy. I mean, Spider-Man is I would put as like #2, but
yeah, okay.
Fantastic Four it's because Fantastic Four picks back up later on. You know, whereas Spider-Man, other than issue 50, you know, it's pretty light on key issues once you get outside of 15 or 20.
Yeah.
And but Fantastic Four, it's stacked, you know, all the way out to 52, and even a little past that if you go to like the first cameo of him and that kind of thing. So
you can't go wrong with any of those older classic Grail books, you know, Fantastic Four or early Fantastic Four or early ASM.
No.
You know.
We've come to the part of the show where, you know, you usually save the best for last. And Ryan, I hope you can agree with me on this one, that even though this price is just ridiculous on this next book, it is still a book that I would probably buy. I'm constantly looking to see where this book is. I'm constantly looking to see if there's another copy I can, you know, pick up. Like you said earlier, you know, like never sell unless you've secured that second copy. But the final book on our list, and that we're going to talk about, is Hulk 181. We've already talked about that, brother. 180, 181, first full appearance. You know, I don't think I need to say any more, but yeah, we got the first full appearance
of the Hulk.
You
did it twice.
I'm over it. What did I do?
Your slot for the first full appearance of the Hulk. On the cameo, it said first cameo appearance of the Hulk.
Oh, goddamn. I put first appearance of Hulk. Jesus. First full appearance of Wolverine.
Yeah, you know, and I would definitely have to say that I would buy this book because I bought one on Sunday, and like so you know, and I followed my rule. I'm listing my current copy now that I have secured my upgraded copy, and so it's just, again, it's actually, it's surprising that it hasn't gone up as much as 180. And because usually you might say it's like, well, it's because it's a more expensive book, that kind of thing. But I mean, Giant Size X-Men has gone up 300%, you know, something like that. Whereas this one, the one I looked at an 8.0 is only up 160%, and 180 was up 250%. So it's like, it actually hasn't moved as much as you might think it should have. And when you're talking about things like X-Men 1 is up like 300 or more percent. And so I don't think the argument necessarily for a book that's this popular that it shouldn't move up as much is really there. I think it's still an undervalued book. And again, it's where, like, there isn't, I don't think that there's a Bronze Age book that would be in more demand than this one. I would have a hard time thinking of any, even almost maybe any book that is in more demand than this one. And I mean, like you said, like, people having multiple copies, like I'm torn on even selling my other copy, you know, just because I'm just like, I don't really mind having a couple of these, or, you know, when you hear about, you know, like I said, like Golden Age Guru having like part of a short box, you know, full of them, you know, it's just like, yeah, it's First Appearance Wolverine, most popular, arguably the most popular character in Marvel. You know, an awesome cover, just an amazing cover, especially when you've got one that, the thing with this book that I always say to look for is that orange on the cover, you can get like a lighter orange or a deeper orange. It's similar to New Mutants 89 with the Cable, first appearance of Cable.
Yep.
The deep orange, like the reddish orange, looks so good. Like, it looks so good. Like, if you can get a copy that has those nice colors, it's an incredible book to have. And yeah, I would be trying to find copies of this, especially if prices are, which, like I said earlier, I am seeing those prices soften a little bit right now. And that's why I bought one. You know, I mean, when I talk about things that I recommend other people do, I do those things. You know, I don't just, you know, say stuff for the hell of it. Like, when I tell someone that that's how I collect or how I buy, that is what I actually do. And I saw prices weakening on this, and I know that you only get so many chances to buy books like this at a discount. And so I bought one, you know, and so that's what I'd be doing. If people want to pick up a copy, I'd be watching right now, because it seems like this may be a decent chance to pick one up.
I have heard many people, experienced people, I'm not going to say old, experienced collectors, experienced, you know, people who have a lot of knowledge, say this book will probably be the AF-15 of the Bronze Age. And when you look at what that book does, and you look at the opportunity that Wolverine has, I mean, outside of Spider-Man, and this is not my opinion, this is just facts, this is numbers, you know, this is all that. Outside of Spider-Man in Marvel, I mean, you're looking at Wolverine as the second most popular, if not a 1A, 1B popular characters, okay? When this character comes back, whatever they do with it, this book is just going to explode. It's getting to the point where you're not going to be able to get it. I mean, Ryan just told you, you know, a book that was missing 2 pages and a cover went for like almost $2,000 US, like things like that. Like, we're getting to the point where people might.
It had the cover. It was missing 2 interior pages. It was missing the opening splash page, which that's usually like that's like the best page in the book. You know, that's, I think the opening splash page is almost identical to the closing page in 180. They're very similar.
Yeah. I just think that this one is going to it's going to be one of those, like, perfect example. Everybody who knows me, you know, Tales of Suspense 39, you guys know that, like, you know, everyone has a different finance, you know, kind of throw finance away from it in a sense, but, like, you know, a 1.0 in that book is literally $5,000 US, right? And, like, I can just see this book eventually getting to that point where like you might only be able to get like 0.5 or 1.0 or 1.5, right? Like I really do think that this book is going to be, I mean, if people think it's unattainable now, it just wait till the character comes.
So I think one of the things that that never gets talked about enough on YouTube videos is the fact that whenever we talk about these books and everything like this, and we're doing it like on a live show with an audience and everything, and we're giving our recommendation as far as whether to buy or sell or keep, it's easy to put those opinions out there. It's easy to say that, you know, this is Hulk 181. Of course it's a buy. You know, it's first appearance of Wolverine. But the thing is, to get ahead in this hobby, there's slim margins and small edges that you kind of got to key in on. And, you know, Ryan was even talking about it there. You know, the thing you got to do, our opinions, that's all great and everything. Anybody else's opinion on YouTube is fine. You take that information and use it. But the most important thing to do is your own research, because you want to look for those small dips like Ryan was talking about, and putting in the research over time, because that's where you're going to cash in. You're going to get your wins and stuff like that. And this is one of those books. You're going to have to look for the small slides, you know, that it might have when it's not necessarily a focus. Like Ryan was saying, you know, this is one that's not growing as fast as 180. People are looking at 180 more because it's more affordable. So this might be a good time to jump on 181, because it's only going to be you know, it's a matter of time before people turn around and start jumping back on 181 whenever, you know, there's finally some news on Wolverine. So yeah,
and I think one of the things that's hurt 181 a little bit over the last few months is, at least from what I've seen, I don't think a 9.8 has sold since like February. There was a 9.8 sale, that one that was around like 57 grand. And it was before this huge craziness happened with comics. And so, whereas we have had 9.8s of 180 sell, we have had multiple 9.8s of Giant Size X-Men 1 sell. But I think the people who own the 9.8s of 181 are holding them back because they want to get that. Like, I think it's got to be $100,000 book plus now. And but you know, it's just in a 9.8. And once that sale actually gets realized and it populates on Go Collect and Cover Price and, you know, all these other places, you know, CLZ and that kind of stuff, like, then I think when that becomes real, that's going to have a big impact on the prices of these books. Like I've seen a ton of 9.6s sell, but just no 9.8s have come to the market.
Oh yeah, I mean, if I had a 9.8, I would definitely be holding on to it. It was, even if I was considering selling it in the future, just now is not the time to put it up, because you know that once that news finally hits, it doesn't matter who the fuck they cast. They can, you know, they can cast Danny DeVito, and people are gonna love it. You know, there's gonna be some people out there who love it.
I don't know.
I've heard people actually making the call for that casting. So, you know, I don't know if he's really ready to play that part at his age, but hey, whatever.
It's definitely going to be interesting. And Ryan, I totally agree with you. I think the one thing that's kind of not the missing link or messed it up, but just no 9.8 have sold. And I think once a 9.8 sells, I mean, it's probably going to mess up the market again, and it's just going to go up. And man, it's going to be very interesting. All right, guys, that is our show. Keys we or I would still buy. I want to thank Ryan for joining us. I mean, a lot of great conversations. I told you guys Ryan was very involved with numbers. He knows his stuff. So I do want to let everybody know, you know, go check out Automatic Comics. He's got his thing right there. Man, I'm so bad at that. Instagram handle there. On Instagram, you can find him with his link to his YouTube channel. Make sure you guys go check it out. Like I said, I was joking, but he is very smart in picking some books up, flips them, makes really good. So when you go on his channel and you see videos like $10,000 unboxing or $6,000 unboxing. You gotta look at the bigger picture on how he does it. Okay.
I sell a lot of books to to buy those other
Right.
books. So, I mean, that's what all is. Like, I mean, I did not win the lottery or something. I mean, it's all turnover, on books. So,
I mean,
So,
that's
Ryan-
the best way to do it. If you can get the hobby to fund itself,
yeah.
Yeah.
there
Exactly.
you go.
Ryan, before we take off, do you want to just let everybody know where they could find you? What days you kind of do your thing?
yeah. So, I mean, yeah, my Instagram handle is right down here. I do have a link to my YouTube channel on my Instagram page, but it's also, you can find me just searching Automatic Comics. And normally I release about 3 videos a week, usually Monday, Thursday, Saturday, or Monday, Thursday, Sunday, something like that. Because I was on vacation last week, I have been, my last video was about a week ago, so I need to get back into filming some stuff again. But yeah, you'll usually see 2 to 3 videos for me come out per week. Usually some type of like weekly haul video, and then some. I do a market video weekly because I watch the Heritage auction, weekly auction every week, and I kind of look at how things are going each week to see if prices are staying similar or dropping or increasing, that kind of thing. Because I mean, I'm like everybody else. I want to know what's going on with the market, and that's the way for me to track that, since I watch that every week. I don't miss. I don't think I've missed one in like 2 years. So I'm definitely aware of prices by following all those different types of sales. So yeah, come check them out. I try to provide some good, useful information.
Yeah, so definitely go check out Ryan. Face, what do you got coming up, man? I know you're doing things on your show now, your channel. So let the people know.
Yeah, you can find me over on, obviously on my YouTube channel on Mondays at 7 with Mr. Key Issues, and Black Crown Comics, who is filling in for Hyper Combo while he's out for a little bit on vacation and stuff like that. And we're gonna have some more special guests stopping by. We're working on getting the one and only Mr. Dan Delatorre to stop by and have a conversation with us. Got a few other people in the works that we're keeping a lid on for now, but definitely stop by Mondays at 7 and check us out. Sure.
Perfect. So you guys heard it here first. So again, make sure you guys go check out Ryan. Ryan, I want to thank you so much for tuning in, catching us, coming back for a second time. We'll definitely have you back on for sure.
Yeah. Thanks for having me back.
Yeah, man. And you guys know we go Sundays and Tuesdays. So next time you see me, it will be Sunday with Mr. FaceTime, New Comic Book Day, Spec, and news. We'll also talk about Loki. Speaking of Loki tomorrow. So everybody enjoy Loki.
Sure.
Everybody enjoy New Comic Book Day. Later.
Peace.